So today we're gonna talk about books. I'm gonna give you all a list of some of my favorite books, maybe a little bit of how they've shaped me, what they're about, why they continue to hold a special place in my heart. And yeah, let me know in the comments or wherever you find me on Instagram what books resonated with you, what books have shaped you and have continued to support you on your path. So the way that I've organized this is into 4 different categories because I like to read about all different things. I read fiction, I read nonfiction. Within nonfiction, I read memoirs, I read about science and physical health, I read self-help, I read about interior design and nature gardening and plants. Within fiction, I read about dystopia and young adult fiction. I read some poetry, some fantasy, thriller, all sorts of things. So I read a whole gamut, the whole maybe spectrum. But these books that I'm going to start to list out some of them have been with me for, I would say 15 years or longer. Some of them have really shaped the way I think about spirituality and society. Other books have really just helped heal me, my physical body, my mind, the physical spaces that I live in, so my apartments and when I've lived on my own. And then other books are just stories that I've really enjoyed, have really brought this imaginative, this dream-like quality, and I've really loved that. So, in no particular order, the 4 categories are spirituality, physical health, emotional well-being, and mental health. So they go with my 4 categories, my 4 main pillars that I talk about often: the mind, the body, the spirit, and the heart. Each one of these pillars goes with these 4 principles that I hold very dear about movement, medicine, mysticism, and mediumship. I explain all of that more in a post I made in Instagram, but essentially these 4 values are kind of the roots, are kind of the foundation for me, the balance, the harmony between our whole selves and our lifestyles, because everything in life is connected. I truly, fully believe that our bodies are not just the physical piece. Our bodies are our spirits, our bodies, or I should say our health, but our bodies are also made up of so much more. Our lifestyles are made up of so much more than just the career or just the relationships. So, yeah, that's just a little bit of a background as to the 4 categories that we'll get into. So let's start with the physical body, since I kind of started with that. So some books that really helped me understand the physical body, but then more so helped me feel more just that physical health is more accessible. I think that there's sometimes a lot of medical and fitness language and things out there, things that are trending, new studies, but these books really help me get a foundational perspective, and I think both of these books I've had for about 8-9 years. So the first one is called How to Be Well, and let me get that book out there. If you hear any background noise, it's me getting my book. It's written by Dr. Frank Lipman, and the book is called How to Be Well, The 6 Keys to a Happy and Healthy Life. I personally subscribe to this doctor's newsletter that comes out once a week. And the book is all about the different areas of physical health. So there's a component about eating, sleep, movement, protect. So that could be the immune system, cleaning vegetables, different cleaning products when we clean our houses, all sorts of things that go into protecting our bodies. Unwind. So this is different than sleep because this is really about handling stress and being mindful with technology and all sorts of things like that. The last is connect, which is all about relationships and creating rituals that are purposeful, all those things. And then the last is kind of like a cheat sheet. What do you do when feeling sluggish or bloated, or just quick kind of FAQs for frequently asked questions. So this book, as most of my books, I should say, I find when I'm browsing through Barnes & Noble or a bookstore, because I really like to walk through each aisle and have the experience, have the book buying, book browsing, of what are the books that are calling to me, what are the books that my mind, my body, my spirit, my heart are gravitating towards. And so this book I found, like I said, about 8-9 years ago, How to Be Well, The 6 Keys to a Happy and Healthy Life, when I was kind of in this phase of my life where feeling kind of confident, I would say, with my body and my body image, but feeling that I really needed that foundational piece. I knew that there was a lot of information out there about nutrition and strength training. I had my yoga certification. So there was this piece of, I just wanted to feel well-rounded. I wanted to feel that I was looking at my health, my physical health, I should say, from different angles. And this book was perfect. It's really got some nice kind of illustrations, not necessarily anatomical, like scientific. It's just got beautiful colors. And it's really well written in the sense that it's got bulleted points. It's not like a heavy medical text. It's really written in mind with the simplicity, with kind of anyone who wants to get foundational physical health. It's a great kind of book, kind of manual for that. I filled it with sticky notes. And yeah, it's just been a constant resource in how to get, again, that foundation, those roots. Because a lot of physical health, I think, and what I learned a lot from the book is just that physical health is about that sustainability. There's so many things that are thrown at us in the mainstream about physical health, and making sure you get a HIIT workout, making sure you walk or run or get this amount of cardio, making sure you eat this many vegetables, and this book really demystifies all of that, makes it very simple, approachable to looking at our physical health, but it also does so much more than that. Because kind of I was reading the table of contents, and he talks about sleep, he talks about rest, which is different than sleep, which really targets the mental and I think stress component, talks about community and connection. And so just really down to earth, approachable. I love this book. Every year when I do my declutter and I kind of go through my books, I always keep it. Who knows if that'll be the case? Maybe it'll get updated in a couple years. But yeah, it's just always been a staple. I think that's something too that even as the years go on, Because it doesn't focus so much on the current studies or the current trends, it really focuses on the foundational elements. It's just been a keeper. So the second book related to physical health is for my women. It's called Roar, ROAR, How to Match Your Food and Fitness to Your Female Physiology for Optimum Performance, Great Health, and a Strong, Lean Body for Life. It's written by PhD Dr. Stacy Sims. Something that also I try to strive for when I do read health, medical, anything like that, I do lean more towards science, scientific tendencies. I love alternative medicine, don't get me wrong. I feel like there's a time and place for everything. And so I'm not disregarding alternative medicine because I love acupuncture and Reiki and homeotherapy and or homeopathy, so many different things. But again, when it comes to the foundation of physical well-being, or foundation for many things, I can say, I like to focus on the well-sourced, the well-researched, and not necessarily because I trust science more than my spirituality. That's not the case. But it is because science does, the whole point, I think, of science and the scientific method is that it has a system to prove itself. Not everything should be using that method. But there are some cases, and for me, physical health is something that does go into that. Is being able to use that method to provide a structure, an overarching analysis for things that affect many of us. So, anyways, this book is primarily for women, for female bodies, and it goes really into why the menstrual cycle, number one, how it affects our nutrition, our rest, our movement. And this is so crucial because as women, something that is now known or now coming to light is that there's not a lot of studies about women in the physical sports field. A lot of the studies that are done with all of these statistics in mind about getting this many hours of cardio or this many minutes of HIIT workout, all of those studies are based on men and male biology and testosterone, and because male bodies are pretty structured. They have a certain amount of testosterone, access to it every day. It's pretty stable. They don't have a 28-day average menstrual cycle that every week the woman's body changes. Physiologically, emotionally, mentally, we're going through changes every week. And so approaching a diet and approaching movement in a way that is changeable has not been done, or is just now recently been done. And so that's why I love this book, because for so long, me understanding why I didn't feel like working out, and I would see women athletes or other women going hard at the gym or going more than I would, and I would feel, what's wrong with me? And going a little bit into the weeds here, but birth control, whether the pill, whether the IUD, whether injection, the patch, all these different things produce an artificial menstruation. And so that is another piece of female health and the kind of fake structure that we operate on, or that society provides for us, because being on those artificial hormones, again, influences and really impacts our energy levels, our satiety levels, all these different things. And so this book was really great in giving me, again, that foundational knowledge about women's health, physical health, I should say, what makes us different, how we can leverage our strength and that differential piece, and just have more awareness about what works for our bodies. I went on to get a women's health certification through this organization called Girls Gone Strong. And so I say that because each woman is different when approaching health. It's not just enough to say that every woman is menstruating and then through their menopausal years and all these things, to approach it in a similar way. Again, I like these books because they're foundational, but that's not to say that the foundation is enough. Each person is different. Each anatomy and biology and hormone level and all of that is different. So take these books with that intention in mind, that these are foundational. The next book that I'm going to talk about in regards to physical health is actually about our spaces. So I really love Feng Shui, which is a it is a way of shaping our homes, our spaces, in order to invite more harmonious energies, more prosperous and inviting energies, uplifting energies in all areas of our lives. So this modality comes from China, and there's a very much more, I should say, traditional way, where, there's people who are so specialized. They are Feng Shui experts, and in China, I believe I'm not an expert. I'm just an amateur, someone who really enjoys it. They can build houses based off of the astrology and the direction of the house, the environment itself, how many trees, what's next to the house. So it can get very into the weeds. But for the sake of us who are on the West, in the Western Hemisphere, in the Northern Hemisphere, we don't need to get that granular. We probably don't have access or the opportunity, the availability for all of that. So this book, it's called The Western Guide to Feng Shui, Room by Room, by Tara Catherine Collins. I've had this book for probably 10, 12 years. And I don't remember where I got it, but I'm pretty sure, you can buy it used on Amazon or something like that. And I love it because it's practical. I'm a pretty practical-minded person. In some sense, I love my spirituality. I love exploring the unknown and the unseen. But for the sake of things that are of this world, the physical body, the things that are more tangible, I like to be practical and have an easy way of understanding them. So this book is a great, easy, I would say, to follow book to get introduced to Feng Shui. I have a few other books, but I'll link the other Feng Shui books in the show notes, because not that they're not great, but they're not my favorite. And what I love about Feng Shui is you can take it anywhere. I've used Feng Shui in every apartment, in every place I've been in since I've kind of entered that world of Feng Shui, since it's been known to me. And essentially, it is about moving furniture in different places, different spots around your house, bringing in different colors, because in Feng Shui, the theory is that each part of the home has a different focus. So there are places in the home that are more for career, relationships, physical health, creativity, travel, all these things. And so I loved this book in its simplicity, and also it had really nice kind of examples and pictures to kind of see what the author was talking about. So it wasn't just theoretical. So for those of you who are really getting into interior design or open to more of a, I would say, spiritual part of interior design, which would be Feng Shui, I would recommend this book. So moving into, I would say, the mental category, mental health, mental exploration. There are two main fiction books that I wanted to recommend because, again, this is just the list of my favorite books. So there's a lot of books out there that, of course, tackle mental health or that are in kind of that, mental mind category. But I've approached this in just the way of books that have been my favorite and I've carried with me for a long time, and that have impacted these different parts of ourselves, the mind, body, spirit, and heart. So the first book in this section is Matilda, a fiction book. I don't remember when it was written. I remember the 90s book. I'm a 90s girl. And so I remember there was a movie that they made. I think it's an 80s book. I'm just checking. I think it's an 80s book. Well, anyways, it's Matilda by Roald Dahl, spelled Roald, last name Dahl. And it's this story about this girl, Matilda, and how she is kind of like the black sheep in her family. How can I say? The parents are very much in their own world. They're not necessarily the nicest parents. They feed her, they clothe her. They're not emotionally there. They're not helping her, let's say, be her best self or explore other areas of her childhood, of herself. She has an older brother, but so she's kind of like the odd duckling of the family of four. Her brother is kind of more with her parents, and so because Matilda is left to her own devices fairly frequently, in the book, which I should say has a few drawings and is more towards like a children's book, I should say, she goes to the library early. She really wants to learn and is very curious-minded. She wants to be able to grow, nurture her mind. And so she goes to the library on her own. And as the years go by, she has her little cart where she just gets more and more books. And so the whole story of Matilda is about curiosity and about being able to pursue things for ourselves, even if our families or our cultures don't do that for us or don't support that for us. And this becomes her strength. This becomes her magic, because Matilda, with all of her reading and all of her curiosity, develops the ability to be telepathic, where she can move things with her mind. And she does some pranks throughout the book because her parents are not necessarily thieves, but they're like crooks. They're not necessarily do-gooders. And so I won't spoil the ending. But it's a really sweet book that really just shows you can do a lot when you put your mind to things, quite literally. The power of reading, the power of knowledge, and knowledge maybe not just within the home and cultural, familial values, but more so our own curiosity, in our own pursuit for ourselves, for what makes us happy and what makes us curious. So I love Matilda and the movie. So if you don't enjoy reading just yet, maybe watch the movie first. The second book for the kind of mental category that I have going is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and the sequel, the second book, Through the Looking Glass, by Lewis Carroll. So you can get any edition of these books, I should say, also. There's not really a particular preference there. But this book, Alice in Wonderland, or Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, I love it because, well, let me explain what the book is about. This girl, Alice, and she comes across this white rabbit one day in a park, and she follows after the white rabbit because he's very curious, he's very interesting, that the white rabbit has a waistcoat, kind of a vest, and a stopwatch, or just one of these watches that, they used to have back in the day with the chain, and was very curious, who sees a rabbit like this in life. And so she follows the rabbit and down this rabbit hole, which is where that expression kind of comes from, going down a rabbit hole. And she gets lost. She gets lost in Wonderland. And Wonderland is very odd. Things are quite weird. Things don't make sense. Some people theorize, or I don't remember, in one of my literature classes I took when I was doing my English degree, that this book, Alice's Adventure in Wonderland, was written when the author, Lewis Carroll, was high or intoxicated or something, because who comes up with a hookah smoking caterpillar and a Cheshire cat, a cat that kind of disappears and appears, and is very kind of like vague in what he says. A Mad Hatter, so a man in the book, a guy who makes hats, but mad in the sense that he's crazy. He's not have all of his screws. I don't know if that translation translates well from Spanish, but he doesn't have all his capacities, and so he's looks at life in a very weird, interesting way. So anyways, it's got a lot of different elements to it in Wonderland. And so at the end, when Alice gets out of Wonderland, it turns out that she was in this dream. And so then the story kind of plays on this: was it real? Was it not real? Did she really go through Wonderland? What does Wonderland even mean? And so I really like the book because it kind of, one, shows that things don't have to make sense, or that it can make sense in the way that we each want it to make sense. We all think differently. We all see things differently. We can learn from others and see other things based off of how others see things. So I just love how it's a book dedicated on nonsense to some extent, because so much of society, I think, is trying to make sense of things, is really trying to put a lot of structure and systems and make things make sense, when it really doesn't have to. We don't know if, or I should say, I don't know if the author really was high or intoxicated or whatever the case may be. But regardless, Alice, the book, I keep wanting to say Alice in Wonderland, but that's the Disney movie. The book Alice's Adventure in Wonderland is really just about kind of giving your mind a rest, not having to have a certain plot or have a certain way of looking at things and going on adventures in a certain way. It's really playful, very creative. Um, and there's a few quotes that I think have lasted through time or through since it's been published. And I don't remember one of them exactly. I should have had it in front of me. But it's kind of the gist of it is doing, I don't know, 1,001 impossible things before tea every day. And so the story really plays on that thought of the impossible, the impractical, the curious, the weird, the interesting. And they're very short, I should say. The first one, Alice's Adventure in Wonderland, and then the second one, Through the Looking Glass, where again she goes back into Wonderland. But the first one is nice and short and really, again, if you're wanting to read something that is different and unique and doesn't really make 100% sense all the time, I would recommend that one. So we've covered two categories. The other two I have are spirituality and emotional, talking about either the emotional health, emotional well-being, or books that have given me an emotional response, have pulled something out of me. So I want to start with the spirituality, because spirituality for me has been, again, a changeable, something that's evolved, grown as I've grown. I was raised Christian, and I should say within the umbrella of Christianity, I was raised Baptist, one of the Protestant branches. And I was baptized, and I never really quite understood Christianity. Culturally, as a Latina, Christianity and the main branch, I should say, of Catholicism is the dominant faith, due to colonization and due to just the complete or almost the complete wiping away of the traditional, the indigenous faiths and mysticism and all of that. So I really didn't understand, and there was a lot where I was afraid of Christianity when I was growing up. The concept of a hell, the concept of this antagonist, this devil, a devil, not really having control to some extent of my own abilities or my own inclinations, because we were all born with sin, and so this automatic guilt and shame. So anyways, I had a really negative experience with Christianity, so a lot of my spiritual growth, or I should say just spiritual inclinations, took me to a lot of the metaphysical, which just means beyond the physical, took me to a lot of the mysticism kind of routes. So one of the books that has meant a tremendous lot to me, is called The Kybalion, and that's spelled Kybalion.